Greetings and blessings, everyone. This is James Thomas Devon. This video is the introduction to the BlueStar Temple Spiritual School. You might say it's been a lifelong dream to do this for me, but I'll get there. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been formulating within my head what I wanted to do in introducing this. If all I was going to do was say, these are the classes that we're going to be teaching, there wouldn't be any point in me doing a video for it. One of the things that I've noticed over 20 years of being actively, consciously on this path is that there are many individuals out there who claim to be spiritual teachers, and yet you know nothing about their background, of what they've gone through, of what they've experienced. And so what I want to do, in essence, is not only introduce the spiritual school to you, but introduce myself and tell you about who I am, my experiences. Now, I've shared an experience or two in some of the different videos that I've done, but this, I'm going to start at the beginning of this incarnation. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept of walk-in. Basically what a walk-in is a situation where a soul enters into a life, into a physical incarnation at birth, and it goes along, and there are other different factors as far as at what age, what happens, different things, but either a prearranged agreement has been made or an agreement that's made at a particular time in that incarnation happens. And normally the individual goes through a near-death experience of some sort, and their soul leaves that physical body, and another soul enters that physical body and takes it from there. It can be rather dramatic when the individual who does this is an adult, because many times, I believe, if I remember correctly, I'm sure there'll be someone out there to correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, there's a gentleman who's written some books about this through his own experiences. His name is Daniel Brinkley. He was an adult when it happened to him. Well, I'm a walk-in. Mine wasn't as dramatic as an adult would be, because many times for an adult, it's like they go through this walk-in experience, and then all of a sudden when they come out of whatever, they're very, very different. Their mannerisms can be different. Their likes and dislikes can be different. Who they wish to hang out with can become very different. For me, rather different. Mine was prearranged, mainly because I had something to do before I could incarnate, before I could come into the physical, but it was going to be after my physical was going to be born. So an agreement was made with another soul who would be born in this physical body and go till about age 2. At that time, I would come in and take over that incarnation. My near-death experience, shall we say, for those of you in America, you'll get the concept really quickly. I had a nickel caught in my throat, which is an American 5-cent piece. And from what I understand, my face was a very beautiful shade of blue. I hadn't been breathing for a while. My mother and apparently an aunt had me. One of them had me by my ankles, and the other one was pounding my back as they were rushing me out to the car to take me to the hospital. And then that soul left. I came in. The nickel popped out. Have a nice day. Now you might ask, what was it that made me, what did I have to do to hold off on coming into the physical form? Well, I did a video on twin flames. And it is very, very true that for most of us, our twin flames are not in physical. Mine is. And it was through our work in remembering and delving in within and everything, we agreed to come into this incarnation at this time on one condition. We got to be together physically, which was readily agreed upon, and I think it was pre-planned on, that we weren't aware of. So basically, Janice was born on the 30th of January 1965. I physically was born on February 2nd, 1964. I have remembered literally being there with ushers as Janice slipped into her physical body at birth. And I was there I haven't gotten all the details as far as why it was so important for me to be there. Perhaps it was a situation that there could be an issue or a problem, which is always And so she was born, and then I did a few other things, and then I made the transition and came into the physical. Now, at the age of 3, my mother moved my sister and I from Torrance, California, from LA to Oklahoma City, where her parents lived. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 2. Now, to be honest with you, my first memories, I was probably 4, and we lived with my grandparents in this really cool house. And in the backyard, we had horny toads, and we had turtles, and they were just wild. They just, very cool. There was a hole in the fence, and they would just do their own thing. At the age of 5, I had this inexplicable knowingness that there was somebody out there I had to find. I had to find them. They were really, really important to me. I'm not sure why, but I was 5. Later on, you'll understand where that came from. After grade 1, after first grade, my mom went on holidays for 2 weeks without Terry and I, without my sister and I. And when she came back, she informed us that we now had a stepfather. And yes, for about 3 years, my surname was Goodbread. You can imagine the teasing, but life is life, There are people with all sorts of names, and I kind of feel sorry for the one named Apple, but that's another story. Like many volunteers, I went through a lot of physical, emotional, and mental abuse, and a lot of it came from my stepfather. He was a truck driver, and he was a drunk, and he beat the shit out of me 3 to 4 times a week. Those were the days he was home. The last time, he left a mark on it that went from side to side across my back, where you could see the outline of the belt, as well as the design that was on the belt on my back, for about 1.5 years. Don't get me wrong, people. Do not go, oh my God, that's horrible. Please, don't feel bad. Don't feel sorry. No. I'm very thankful for the experience. Trust me. because it showed me something. My mom finally left him, and for 6 months we lived in a flat, and I knew where he was living. And when my mom initially split from him, I really, really did not like him at all. You know, there was nothing I could do. I figured, he had something coming to him, and it was going to come whether he liked it or not. And that's all there was to it. But about 6 months after they had split up, I was walking home from school one day, and this is the first indication, if you will, that I was different from other people. And it was an indication to me that I was different, and I felt different anyway. But this really indicated I'm different from other people. I stood on the corner of the street, looking down the street towards the house where he was living. And I knew where he was living because it was the same house that we had initially moved into when he and my mother got married. Because he had let one of his friends live in it while, we went off and lived elsewhere. My first stint in the trailer park. So I stood there for about 10-15 minutes, long time. And finally I said, you know what? I forgive you. It's all done. It's over with. And I turned and I walked away. From that moment, I was 10 years old, to this moment right now. I just turned 52 years old a week ago. I have not had one ill thought about him. I have not had any negative thoughts about him. I have not hated him. I've had nothing but compassion and love for him. And that told me I was different. Now, growing up in Oklahoma, because of my experiences with my stepfather, after about 6 months, my mom moved my sister and I back in with my grandparents. And we were living in a duplex, and there wasn't a lot of room, and for a 10, 11-year-old kid, sharing a room with your grandfather just was very strange. But it's like I'd withdrawn quite a bit, and I would say things just to have people shut up and leave me alone, which stems from my experiences with Weldon, my stepfather. So this caused a lot of issues between my grandfather and I, which never really did get resolved until 1987, but we'll get there. I'm not going to speak for 5 hours telling you everything, but I want to give you enough. So not long after, we ended up buying a trailer, moving into the same trailer park that I had lived in with Weldon, which was kind of not the greatest thing, to be honest. But I mean, the trailers were cool. I mean, it was 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, lounge, dining room, kitchen. It wasn't like, it's not a caravan like you'd see in New Zealand or Australia. These are like proper homes. They can go places, although generally they don't. So at the age of 13, where our trailer was, at the back of our backyard was a fence, and on the other side of that fence was a massive wheat field. Now, we had a huge Kinko building, which is like a shed, but it's a massive one. And there was an awning that went from it to our trailer. And so I could sit on the other side of that building and no one in my trailer could see me, which I liked a great deal. Still sharing the bedroom with the grandfather. Grandmother had her own room, and my mom and my sister had a room to them, but basically it was Terry's room because my mother worked 2 full-time jobs and basically wasn't really at home very much. She was this night, though. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening, and I'm sitting on the grass looking at the stars. I love looking at the stars. Still do. And I saw this star. Well, I thought it was a star. It was really bright. And then it did one of these things. And I could see like this dark outline. And I thought, whoa, cool. That's a spaceship, you know. And I went inside. And of course, my grandmother was in her room. Grandfather in his. Terry in hers. My mom was in the toilet. My grandparents had a lot of health problems as I was growing up, and so they weren't overly ambitious with what they did. And they each had their own TV in their room and stuff. So I grabbed my history book, which was my favorite subject in school. Blank piece of paper, pencil, ran outside. So I fold a piece of paper with a drawing on it, stick it inside my book, and I stuck the book up against the Kinko building with my pencil on the crease. I thought, I'm going to go see if Mikey can come outside. A friend of mine lived behind us and on the other side. So I walk through the backyard to where our garden was and 2 small sheds. And I look over to the corner of our backyard. There's a power pole. And standing up on top of this power pole was something that looked like a bird. Except for 2 things. It was about 5 feet tall, rather large, and I couldn't see a head. Now at 13 years old, you generally will do one of 2 things. Or run away screaming, or go for a closer look. And I didn't either. I just nodded my head like I acknowledge you're there, and I kept walking, walked around to the front of Mikey's trailer, knocked on his door. He opens the door. I said, dude, can you come outside for a while? And he goes, nah, man, I'm grounded. I said, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. Walk back. I'm gone like 90 seconds. That's it. And I go through our garden, into our backyard, and I stop. And I look up, and whatever had been on the power pole was gone. My book was now in the middle of the backyard, opened, standing up on its open ends. My pencil was about a meter from the book. Our neighbors next door to us, who actually kind of shared the same yard we did, they were on holidays. No one in my family would have come out looking for a damn book anyway. So I'm kind of puzzled, going, what the, you know? So I grabbed this book. Now I had placed this drawing in the middle of the book, and there was all kinds of scratch and doodle paper, homework paper in this book. And I grab my pencil, I go inside, and I go to the kitchen table, and I open it up, and I'm looking. 30 minutes I looked. Everything was there. The drawing was gone. Now, I grew up going to church. Well, by the way, that was their way of telling me that what I saw was real. And although I didn't understand it at the time, I was part of that. You'll understand that in a moment with Hal, which I think I have mentioned in a previous video. Except for an experience that me and a friend of mine had at 16 in a house that was built around 1840, 1850, where we saw a couple of ghosts. Nothing really much happened growing up. After high school, I was still pretty screwed up anyway. And my entire focus, to be honest with you, growing up was not to be at home. but I couldn't go out and party and stuff like that because I had to be at home for certain things. So I played sport and choir and all sorts of things like that. Those are the days when I could sing. Can't really sing much anymore. So I went into the military, did the military thing, Army Reserves, and then I did active duty Air Force where I was a medic over in Germany. Well, in those days it was West Germany. But anyway, I came back and I went to the International Air Academy in Vancouver, Washington. And then I got a job after that with Jet America Airlines down in Long Beach, California. And in 1986, I'm living in Long Beach with a roommate named Lexi, who also worked at the airlines. And my best friend was Hal. As far as I knew, he worked at the airline. I talked to him in our office. I was at reservations. He didn't do reservations. I saw him talking to supervisors and managers and things like that. But I really can't tell you how we met. I'm assuming it was at work. I've thought about this countless times over the years. Anyway, on 4 separate occasions, I called home. Terry was at university and engaged, I believe, by this point, or moving in that direction. And my mom would answer the phone. By this time, she wasn't working 2 full-time jobs anymore. And all 4 times, I said, "What's wrong with Grandma? What's wrong with her? How's she doing?" I was frantic. Just like, what's wrong with my grandmother? My grandmother was the one person in my life that I'd ever been really close to. The one person that was my saving grace. There's a part of me that actually thinks that if it hadn't been for her, I wouldn't have survived growing up, period. Not that she'd stopped anything, but just her presence. And every time my mom she'd be on the phone, no, everything's fine. No, everything's no problem. The last time, the 4th time, was on the 1st of November of 1986. It was a Friday evening. Same thing. She's fine, everything's fine. I talked to my grandmother, everything's fine. A week later, the following Friday, I get called into my supervisor's office, right? "Hey, your mother's on the phone." I'm like, what's up? She informs me that my grandmother has fallen and broken her hip. And she was on oxygen the last 9.5 years of her life, smoking. And they had done surgery and she was coming off the respirator. Everything was looking fine. Everything was good. "Do you want me to come home?" No, everything's fine, Talk to my grandfather, same thing. And told my supervisor, and she said, "Do you want an emergency pass to go home?" And I said, "No." They said everything was all right. So I go back out to my computer. 15 minutes later, I'm back in my supervisor's office going, "I have to have that pass to go home." Okay. Book yourself on the flight Tuesday morning, and you'll get the tickets on Monday. I said, okay. The next day comes Saturday. Right after lunch. I've come back from lunch. I'm at work. And I'm really angry. I'm cranky. Something's wrong. I don't know with who. I don't know with what. Something's really wrong, In the States, I was known as a customer service specialist. I've done customer service work for over 30 years. No offense, but I'm one of the best in the world at doing customer service. I just am. Perhaps it's my attitude of I'm on this planet to be of service and all the different customer service roles I've had and everything. But I was actually rude to a couple of different customers, and that's not me. Finally, everything calms down, and it's all right. Monday comes. Now, I booked myself on the 7 o'clock flight out of Long Beach to Dallas direct, and then a 1 o'clock flight from Dallas to Oklahoma City on American Airlines. Get my tickets, got it. Yeah, all right. Gonna go home, gonna see my grandmother. Half an hour goes by and the supervisor comes out. Excuse me, did you apply for the ticket counter position in Minneapolis? And I'm like, yes. The interview for that is tomorrow morning at 9. I'll be there. So I get up in the morning. I'm up at like 4 in the morning with my suitcase. I walk to work. Our office is across the street from the airport, so I mean, it's like 7 miles to the office, right? But I get there, I go through the interview. I take the 10:50 flight that goes through Vegas, right? Arrive in Dallas at 6 p.m. Found out in Dallas that I almost got bumped in Vegas. That would not have been good. I'd never been to Vegas. Didn't care to be in Vegas. I wanted to be in Oklahoma City seeing my grandmother. No, I was flying standby. I get bumped off the next 2 American flights. Walk about 12 miles in the Dallas-Fort Worth airport trying to find a flight to Oklahoma City. I have no idea what was going on, but there was lots of people flying that night. I finally got the last seat on an American flight out of Dallas at 9 p.m. and arrived in Oklahoma City at 9:30. Now, my entire luggage was just a carry-on bag. So we arrived in Oklahoma City, and the entire plane just shuffles on down to baggage claim, and I just walk up through the terminal up to the front of the airport. Now, mind you, this is 1986. Things are still moving rather slowly, spiritually speaking. Even though I had grown up in church and everything like that, been different. Anyway, I get up to the front of the airport, and there's this huge archway. And I start to go through the archway, and there's nobody around, right? And I mean, you don't have international flights flying into Oklahoma City. It's just domestic flights, and usually, back in 1986, 9 o'clock at night, you might get 1 or 2 flights in them, but that's about it, And I stop like I hit a brick wall, and I'm like, okay. And I hear in my head, clear as a bell, look to your right. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm just tired. It's been a long, long day. I just want to see my grandmother. Look to your right. I put my bag down. And I'm thinking, oh man, I'm losing the plot. I'm just tired. That's all it is. Look to your right. Fine. Now, my mother, I had told, I will call you when I get there because I'm flying standby. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to wait 45 minutes for my mom to come and get me from the airport. But I've got this voice in my head telling me to look to the right. I have no idea where any ticket counters are in there or anything else. So I look to my right. Lo and behold, there's my mother at the American ticket counter trying to find out what time I'm coming in. And I'm like, not even going to ask. Not even going to ask. So I go and grab her, and we head to the house, and I say hello to my grandfather. And we go to the hospital. Get to the hospital about 10:30. On the way to the hospital, my mother informs me that fluid had built up around my grandmother's heart, and she had a relapse. And so, as of mid-morning Sunday morning, she'd responded to nobody. And I'm literally devastated because my grandmother was the only person I was ever close to growing up. Period. End of story. That was it. We get to the hospital. My grandmother's in a private room in ICU. She has an NG tube in, which is a nasogastric tube. It goes through the nose into the stomach. She's not on a respirator. She's got IVs. And her wrists are strapped down because inadvertently she had pulled the NG tube out twice. It's because of her oxygen cord at home. You see, her cord at home was so long she could go anywhere in the house and still wear it. She could even go out on the front porch and still wear it. It was that long, and she was always adjusting it. So my mom said, go ahead and go in and by yourself, just spend some time. I said, all right. Go in, sit down, take her hand in mine. And she opened her eyes, and we talked for half an hour. It's the last time she ever spoke. The important aspects here is she told me, she goes, everything's fine. Don't worry, it's all good. I know exactly what's going on. Didn't quite realize it at the time, but what had actually happened, she'd already been on the other side. She knew everything. She knew what was going on. She was literally knew everything. She knew the whole gambit of what was going on. She made me promise her two things. One, I would make peace with my grandfather before he passed away, which I did. I took care of him for the last year of his life. And two, that I would stay on the path that I was starting, even though I had no idea what that meant. So, like I said, she never spoke after that. And all I knew is that if my grandmother told me to find a way to hell and sit on a hot coal till she came and got me, that's what I'd do. My grandmother meant everything to me. Literally everything. The ultimate kuya. You know what I mean? So, after 4 or 5 days, I was at the hospital and getting ready for my mom to take me to the airport for me to fly back to California. I knew I wouldn't get to see my grandmother again. And my mom was really, really upset, really angry at herself. And she kept saying, oh, I could just kick myself. I could just kick myself. She's saying it over and over again. I'm like, I'm losing my mind here. I'm like, Mom, what, Finally get her calmed down. I said, what are you talking about? She said, 4 times you called home wanting to know what was wrong with your grandmother. And I missed it. I said, what do you mean you missed it? What did you miss? She said, every time you called home wanting to know what was wrong with your grandmother, we had to rush her to the hospital the next day. And the last time, at 8 o'clock the next morning, is when she fell and broke her hip. Now remember, I told you on the Saturday at work, the day after my mom had called me, I got so upset. It was Saturday night that the fluid built up around my grandmother's heart and she had a relapse. It was like I knew what was coming. As far as I'm aware, this was my first real psychic event. So I went back to California on November 30th of 1986. My sister and brother-in-law called me and told me that my grandmother had passed on. And I wrote her a song called So Long, which I ended up reading. I was going to have a neighbor put music to it, but he was too strung out on coke. So I read it over the phone to my mother, and she had the minister read it at my grandmother's memorial service, and I was really pleased because a lot of people asked for a copy of it, so that was really cool. Now we get to hell. Christmas Eve, 1986, so just under a month later, I couldn't go back to Oklahoma for Christmas. With the airlines, it's 365 days a year, 7 days a week. Um, and So my roommate Lexi and I and Hal was there, and we decided to have a party. Hal didn't live with us, but we decided to have a party, just kind of commiserate together the fact that we couldn't be at home for Christmas. And so we're smoking some marijuana and drinking and partying and whatnot. I wasn't really partying too hard because I had already made arrangements with a friend of ours at work. She was going to come to the house at 5:30 in the morning, and I was going to drive her to the airport. She was lucky; she was getting to go home on Christmas morning. So, got to be about midnight, and Hal had been drinking and partying pretty good, along with Lexi. Lexi was getting pretty messed up, but Hal really wasn't, and I wasn't because I wasn't going too overboard or anything. And at 2 in the morning, Lexi's really pissed at this point and announces that he's got to go to the toilet and then he's going to make another drink. And he starts stumbling his way upstairs. We lived in a 2-story townhouse type thing. And we had this really small back, wasn't even a backyard, it was like a back patio with a 6-foot high fence. You might get 10 people back there, but they would all have to be standing, all right? And Hal looks at me and he basically waits until Lexi's out of sight, and he's like, I have something I need to tell you, can we go out to the back patio? And I'm like, okay. And we go out there and he's hemming and hawing. It's like, think about it, it's like one of those things, you got something to tell somebody, but you really don't know how they're going to react. And so you're hemming and hawing. So anyway, so finally Hal looks at me dead in the eye and he goes, you don't come from this planet, you come from elsewhere. And my reaction was, yeah, okay. I knew it was true, but it was like, it was just, yeah, okay. And right after that, Lexi comes bounding out with a drink, and Hal looks at Lexi and Lexi, you got to turn off the porch light. There's way too much energy out here. Now, at that particular juncture, I wasn't really conscious of energy and things like that. Lexi was too screwed up, of course, been drinking too much. And then all of a sudden, the light bulb just exploded. Go figure. 5 in the morning comes, and Lexi and Hal retire upstairs to crash. 5:30 comes, and knock on the door and open it, and here's our friend from work, and so I drive her to the airport, wish her a Merry Christmas, give her a kiss on the cheek, have a great friend, great day and with the family, and blah, blah, blah. Go back home and go upstairs and to crash, and Lexi's out cold. Hal's gone. That was Christmas Eve 1986. Today is the 14th of February 2016. I have never spoken to Hal again, never saw him again. I talked to people at work who I had seen him talk to, and they were like, don't know who you're talking about. Lexi, funny enough, Lexi remembered Hal, but it was like, yeah, whatever. You just didn't care. So, some people think of a mystery, and that was a mystery. It's taken a long time, but I figured out who Hal was and where he's from and all of that. He wasn't born into this world. He manifested himself to come and deliver that message to me. About 3 weeks later, now I'm not a visual person, okay? I close my eyes and imagine an apple, and generally I see black. If I remember a dream, it's because it's really, really important. There's a reason I said that. So I go back to Oklahoma, middle of January for my Christmas, and my mom's at work. Grandfather is laying down in his bedroom. They don't live in the trailer, they live in a house now, 3-bedroom house. And there was a bar, and on this side of the bar was the kitchen, and on that side was the dining room, and to the left was the lounge room. And I'm sitting in the bar stool on the kitchen side, same bar stool my grandmother used to always sit in, at 2 in the afternoon. And I'm reading a smut magazine, which is like National Enquirer, Weekly World News, a gossip rag with outlandish stories and everything. My grandmother used to love reading those. And I kind of enjoyed reading them as well. So I'm sitting there and I'm flipping through. And I look up, and standing, literally standing between the bar and the dining room table is my grandmother. And she's got this incredible smile on her face. Her stomach's not bloated and there's no tubes. And it only lasted for a few minutes, but it was incredible getting to see her. And that night, that very night, and the next night, on ABC in the States, was the 2-part miniseries Out on a Limb, Shirley MacLaine, all about her spiritual search. And for the first time, I heard things about channelers and healers and readers and energy. And they were talking about UFOs up in Machu Picchu and Lake Titicaca and Cusco. And I knew I was onto something. Didn't know what, but I knew I was onto something. Went back out to California, middle of June. I came back to Oklahoma to take care of my grandfather, which I did for the next year. And then, for whatever reason, my mom informs me that she promised her father, my grandfather, that she would move back to Washington State should he pass away. Okay. She hadn't lived there since she was probably 20, you know. So anyway, we moved to Washington State, and I started checking out New Age shops, and I found a book that had loads of different channelings in it and everything. There's actually a book that my stepson has. I hope he still has it. It's a channeled book, and in the first chapter, the person that's sitting there asking this channel being questions is actually Gene Roddenberry. Now, for any of you that may not know who Gene Roddenberry is, he's the creator of Star Trek. Mabel Roddenberry, his wife, was, well, probably she was Nurse Chapel in the original series, and she was Deanna Loaxana Troy in Deep Space Nine and Next Generation. She was also the voice of the computer. Don't know if she still is, but anyway. So I read all these different channelings in this book, and in 1989 I went to my first channeling, and it was a woman channeling a being named Rajni. Probably February, March of '89. Couldn't tell you anything that he talked about at all, except for one thing. He said, "Don't believe what I say, because I say it. Discern within your heart. If it resonates, explore it, experience it, see where it leads you. If it doesn't, put it on a shelf or throw it away. Don't worry about it. Don't judge it. If you require it later on, you will come back around." I've always remembered that, and that's stuck with me. There was a metaphysical shop in this warehouse kind of district there in Tacoma. And I was in there one day, and there was a woman in there fondling a beautiful, huge amethyst crystal geode. Just beautiful. I said, "How you doing?" She goes, "All good. I'm just having some time with with my friend here. I got him on lay-by and yeah, blah, blah, blah. And we got to talking, felt very connected. So for the next year and a half, we got together about 3 times a week at our house in Tacoma, and we worked on spiritual things. And in August of '89, at her house, Archangels Raphael and Gabriel started their little play on me, and I started channeling. And that began my channeling. My healing began right across the street. Her sister lived across the street, and one evening was having a really massive asthma attack. And they thought they were going to have to take her to the hospital. And my friend looked at me and said, "Can you do something?" And I said, "I'll give it a go." I went over and did a healing on her. I had never trained anything in healings or anything else. And went over, stood behind her, and did a healing on her. And within like 2 minutes, she was breathing normally. And she said, "If you had not done that, I would have to go to the emergency department." So in 1991, I learned Reiki and became a Reiki master. I began doing journeys and meditations for people. Started doing psychic readings at psychic fairs. And then I was doing the psychic fair, and it was 2-day psychic fair, and it was the last day. Last reading of the day was a woman, and she had questions about her son. I'm like, okay. And I answered her question. She was very happy with the reading. She left, and I thought, wow, that was really powerful. That was really good. And for the next 2 weeks, she called me every day with more questions. And I kind of determined right then and there that it wasn't about just feeding people answers. It was about teaching people to get their own answers. So over the course of the next 10 years, I taught psychic awareness training. I taught Reiki. I did channelings, public channelings, private channelings. I did healing sessions, all sorts of things. In 1995, an ex-partner of mine and myself went to a healer, and she did etheric implant removal, and she spoke in light language. Yay. I had never heard of either one. And she was doing a session on both of us, kind of going back and forth between the two of us. And about halfway through, she turns to me and she goes, "Morgan has this Roman helmet on her head. You know, it's definitely from a past life, but I need your help to remove it." I thought, cool. And it was like someone went and flipped a switch, and it was like instantaneously I could speak in universal light language, and I can remove etheric implants. There was actually a few years later, I was at a session where somebody was doing implant removals, and there was a whole group of us in a room, and when we stopped and had a break, I said, "Are you familiar with the fifth dimensional computer that shows you all the implants?" She looks at me, "No." So I told her all about it. Changed how she did it. So I've been speaking in light language and doing etheric implant removal for 20 years. 21 this year. Oh my God. Oof. 25 years of being a Reiki master. Going into my 27th year of channeling. There's a lot more that's happened to me and a lot more to the story, but I think you get the point. My life has been guided from day dot. I'm not like other people. Never was, never will be. That's fine. It's time for me to share what I know. I wanted more than anything to give people the tools to get their own answers, get their own guidance. So this is where we're going to start. For all of you in the Wellington region, it's very exciting. We are going to start off with a 6-week course on opening the channel. This is going to be automatic writing. This is going to be verbally channeling guides, higher dimensional beings. I will teach you how to do it. I will teach you what you need to do before you do it. I will teach you everything you need to know in order to do it. I have taught many people how to channel. Anyone can do it if you believe in yourself and are willing to open yourself to that experience. Now that's going to be a 6-week course. Each class is $20. Right at the moment, I will, these will start fairly soon. I'm still working on a venue. I'm not sure if we're going to do it here at the house or somewhere else. But I will have that information hopefully in the next week or so. All right. The next class, which will be a 3-class session, is going to be meditations and journeys. In that class, I'm going to actually give you, in writing, a number of meditations and journeys that not only you can do for yourself, but at the end of the 3 days, you will also get a certificate from the BlueStar Temple that you are qualified to do meditations and journeys for groups. And, all right, so it's a spiritual qualification, if you will. And, you know, the 3rd class that I'm going to be teaching is the BlueStar Healing Method. This too is going to be a 6-week course. This will teach you not only the energy work, but implant removal as well. Another thing that you'll actually learn in it is how to replace chakras that have been damaged. Very cool. And the last course, which is going to be over two weeks, is another healing modality, which is called the crystal cocoon healing. This is for those individuals who love utilizing crystals in their lives. Now, I have spoken to one person who's going to learn this first, that I'll be doing that with hopefully in the next month. All of these classes, all of them, $20 a class. Each class 2 hours. At the end of each course, you will receive a certificate, either a qualification certificate or a certificate of participation. With the BlueStar Healing Method, after 6 weeks, you will be classified as a BlueStar Healing Method Master. And although not technically qualified to teach it, you will have your certificate and you'll be able to go out and use it as you wish. Charge what you wish, whatever. Be yours. Now, along with this, we're going to have the online classes as well. Now, with the online classes, these will be starting in the future, mainly because I still have to do the videos and everything. With that, because it's going to be different, it's not going to be in person, I'll be doing a video on the core subject, and then there will be a number, depending upon the course, of Skype sessions with each individual who participates. Unfortunately, through a lot of discernment and wherefore all, I will not be teaching the BlueStar healing method by distance teaching. The opening the channel, the meditation and journey work, even the crystal cocoon healing, I'll be teaching distance healing, distance learning, but not the BlueStar healing method. That has to be done in person. Might be able to work something out as far as travel to different places to do it, if that benefits and if there's a call for it. If you are interested in this, either here in Wellington or distance, please send me an email to Akashic and Skype sessions at gmail.com. I will be putting this in the message as well. This is about assisting people in awakening more, in tuning in more to who you are, in opening yourself to a greater reality, greater awareness. It's time to give back. I'm not going to charge an arm and leg. I don't believe in that. I charge for my time and my energy. That's it. The cost for the online courses will be arranged differently, as it's not coming. You're not coming to individual classes, but you will have the video as well as the different Skype sessions. There'll be more information on the distance learning courses to come. All my love and blessings to each of you. I am available for the personal Akashic scrolls as well as the personal spiritual guidance and counseling Skype sessions. So if you're interested, please send it to the same email address. Much love, many blessings. Have a great day. Bye-bye.